Alright guys, listen up. Why does martial law look like a sex doll? Hello everyone and welcome back to GameTalk, where we talk about games, new and old. And today is a very special day, my friends. We talked about the latest Mortal Kombat game and I figured we should talk about the classics. But this time, not spelt with a K. Yes, we're gonna talk about the original Tekken, or should I call it Moon Jump Simulator 1994. Yes, you heard that right. Tekken was made in 1994 and was ported from the arcade machines to the PlayStation in 1995. So this is quite an old game we're gonna be looking at today. I mean, if the graphics don't quite tell you that this is old, then I don't know what does. Tekken was a very influential and iconic fighting game for the time. It was actually the 5th PlayStation game ever made. Keywords: for the time. I won't lie here, this game has definitely shown its age, and I do want to point out that while it's not that great anymore, for the time this was revolutionary. Anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. Tekken was not only one of the first 3D fighters ever made alongside Virtua Fighter, but was in fact one of the first 3D modeled games ever made. For other fighting games like Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat used 2D sprites, but Tekken said eat a fat one and went full 3D. Stepping in and out of the environment wasn't fully implemented until the later installments of the series, but this game did what it could for the time. I also want to say, how thick is this manual? God damn, is this the manual or the fucking dictionary? The weird thing is, I played Tekken 2 before Tekken 1, and I played Tekken 3 before Tekken 2. So my first experience with Tekken 1 years ago was basically a downgrade, put it that way. And rightfully so, because these games are so much more. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. And yes, Tekken is my favorite fighting game series of all time. And I did want to start with the 3 games that started it off. So with Tekken 1, we'll find out today if it still holds up and if it's still as iconic as it was all those years ago. Let's do this. Okay, so let me just launch it and wait, what? I'm sure I put in Tekken, not Galaga. What the hell is going on? Yeah, weird thing is about Tekken 1 is that launching it will not start Tekken straight away and instead will give you a Galaga minigame. Let's just start, shall we? Wait, what the fuck am I watching? This is horrifying. Ew, get it away from me.
Ah! Shit! Fuck me! Oh! Shit! What the fuck? I don't want fucking that! Fuck! Stop screaming! Stop!
I did say this game has shown its age, didn't I? This is an example of early to mid 90s FMV and it bloody scares me. But for the time I couldn't imagine how good this looked. Anyway, isn't fighting game opening supposed to hype you up for a fight? If so, why does this make me want to turn off my PS1 and run away? Okay, now that I've witnessed a bunch of sex dolls trying to be 3D anime Japanese fighters, let's continue. Okay, before we go too far, let's discuss plot. Now, if you expect the plot to be good, there's clearly something wrong with you, mate. Get yourself checked. So basically, many years ago, a tragic event occurred. It isn't stated what that event was until the later installments, but this event led to a broken man, Heihachi Mishima, to toss his 5-year-old son, Kazuya Mishima, off of a cliff with the idea in his head that if he were truly a Mishima, he would be able to climb back up. Kazuya barely survived the fall and only survived because of the devil gene he inherited from his mother. Years later, Heihachi is the owner of a conglomerate known as the Mishima Zaibatsu, and he starts a fighting tournament known as the King of Iron Fist Tournament, translated to Tekken, with a large amount of prize money for the winner. And now 26-year-old Kazuya enters the tournament to enact his revenge against his father with the darkness in his heart and the devil's blood running through his veins. Now, if you paid close attention, you'll notice that that is one of the stupidest things I've ever heard in my life. But hey, at least there's a reason for that people are fighting each other. But something that I don't mind about the plot is that each character is somehow connected, and as the games went on and the story became a focus, these characters have conversations with each other and build personalities. Doesn't excuse the dumb plot though. There are 8 characters to choose from at the start of the game, and more to unlock as you progress through the game. These 8 characters are Yoshimitsu, a ninja/thief helping the poor, Nina Williams, a trained assassin, Martial Law, a martial arts master trying to open his own dojo, Paul Phoenix, a hot-blooded American training in judo, Jack, a military cyborg, King, a Mexican wrestler wanting to open an orphanage, Michelle Chang, the daughter of a man who was killed by Heihachi's people, and of course the main protagonist, Kazuya Mishima. Okay, let's get into the fighting. I'm not gonna lie here, It's aged horribly. It's slow, clunky, there's input lag, I could go on and on. Getting knocked on the ground can sometimes cause you to be stuck there and exposed for multiple seconds. The AI is way too fast compared to you, and it can perform strings of moves that sometimes make it impossible for you to even get up. If someone who's never played Tekken before plays this nowadays, they would turn away immediately. Fair to say this is not a good Tekken to start off on. Not to say it still doesn't hold up in all aspects though. There are certain things that make Tekken ultimately stand out from the likes of Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat for the time. First off is that the characters are all unique in their fighting styles and have a whole bunch of variety from the different throws, combos, and moves you can perform. Each character has a very specific fighting style seen in the manual that the moves represent really well. Some examples include King, the Mexican wrestler, doing takedowns and suplexes, a character like Martial Law, a mixed martial arts master, performing backflip kicks and fast kick combos, and his moves and design are both very reminiscent of Bruce Lee. But with all fighting games, there has to be a Bruce Lee knockoff, like Tekken has Martial Law, Street Fighter has Fei Long, and Mortal Kombat has Liu Kang. Something else that Tekken did to differentiate itself from other fighters was have a unique style of fighting. What I mean by that is that each button on the controller is assigned to a limb, similar to Mortal Kombat but more complex. Each character has their own 10-hit combos as well, which are all very different from one another. There is a problem with that though. There is no indication anywhere on how to do some of these moves. There is a small list in the manual for each character, but there are a whole bunch of moves that aren't indicated anywhere, and there isn't even a practice mode. Yeah, that test mode in the main menu, it's an options menu. So how in the hell are people supposed to learn how to do specific moves? But you know what? I kind of get it. This game is pretty much a direct port from an arcade machine, but now with direct multiplayer mode and unlockable characters. And can I really blame the 5th PlayStation game ever made? I don't know. But something else I can praise for the core fighting, certain mechanics like counters and punishes. This game heavily relies on counters and punishes. How they work is a counter is when your opponent goes in for an attack and you intercept it with another attack, causing your attack to deal more damage. A punisher occurs after you're blocking opponents' attacks and they stop attacking. It gives you a small window of opportunity to attack them back while they aren't blocking, once again dealing more damage than usual. That's something I love about Tekken. It always makes you think one step further at all times. Okay, now this game looks... Your hands are really big, Jack. See, I don't usually care about graphics in games. As long as it plays well and you can immerse me into it, I'm fine with that. But sometimes... I'm sorry, this game looks dreadful. Yes, for the time, I bet it did look good, especially because this was one of the first games back then that had fully functional 3D models. But when you eventually look at Kuma, I can appreciate that this was the next step into using 3D models in games. Speaking of which, Jack in this game actually reminds me of Koala Kong from Crash Bandicoot. Now, while this game may not look too great, it sounds spectacular. The Tekken trilogy, alongside Crash Bandicoot, Spyro the Dragon, Rayman, Silent Hill, and Final Fantasy, are known to have some of the best soundtracks on the PS1, let alone gaming itself. This is mostly due to the PS1's amazing sound system, which was way ahead of its time. But for 1994 to 1995, holy shit, this soundtrack is good. I'm just gonna show you a few small examples. This soundtrack not only captures the settings of the stages really well, but the stages themselves are all recognizable locations around the world, like Kyoto, Chicago, and Fiji. And some music even like the character select screen I find great. I feel like this is a perfect track to G you up for a fight, and it emphasizes the dark lore of the game and the fact that pretty much every character is at each other's throats. This game, till this day, still exceeds in the aspect of making such a catchy, atmospheric, and immersive soundtrack. Hell, I'll say this soundtrack is even better than Tekken 7's. And better yet, you can choose in the option menu whether you would like to use the PS1 remix soundtrack or the original arcade soundtrack. Both are nearly as good as each other, PS1 still dominates though. This is a prime example of the PS1's amazing sound card. hard. I do recommend you look up the whole soundtrack if you want to orgasm prematurely. Okay, so in the arcade mode, there are 9 stages. After winning a battle, your character will perform a unique victory animation. On the 8th stage, you'll verse a sub-boss, and that sub-boss will be different depending on the character you've chosen. Such as if you picked Kazuya, you would verse his adopted brother Lee Chaolan. If you picked Nina Williams, you'll verse her sister, Anna Williams. Or if you picked King, you'll verse Armor King, the rival and future ally of King. And holy shit, what the hell is Prototype Jack, and why is it the coolest thing I've ever seen? Once you defeat the sub-boss, you'll verse the final boss, the creator of the King of Iron Fist tournament, Heihachi Mishima, which I can tell you right now is not easy to beat, believe me. After beating Heihachi, a FMV cutscene will play showing your chosen character's ending. There is only one that is canon, however, and that's Kazuya's, where he throws Heihachi off the same cliff that he was thrown off of. Well, I'm having nightmares tonight, and with Tekken, the ending cutscene for each character would continue to be a trend, some being serious and most being cheesy, as any fighting game story segment should be. While that applies for the later Tekken games, all the endings in this game are just so cringy, mostly for the reason that for each ending it plays the same song without dialogue. Maybe for the time it wasn't cringy, but there is one ending that I'll always love because of how dumb it is and how it makes no sense whatsoever: Nina's ending. I'm just gonna show you the full thing, don't worry, it doesn't go for long. It's nonsensical and cheesy, yeah, but for a game like Tekken, it's perfect. And after that, you get to input your name into the leaderboards, and the higher up you'll be if you completed arcade mode in a short amount of time. When going back to the character select screen, you'll notice that the sub-boss you just defeated will now be playable. They aren't very unique, and most of them just have the same voice lines and the same moves as the regular characters. However, most sub-bosses will actually have combinations of other characters' movesets. Like Armor King has the takedowns and suplexes that King has, but with certain moves that Kazuya has, like those powerful uppercuts. Heihachi Mishima can be obtained when completing arcade mode in under 5 minutes 30 without continuing. And the infamous Devil Kazuya can be unlocked when beating the Galaga minigame on the startup. It's not actually Devil Kazuya, it's a costume for Kazuya, and here's what it looks like. Honestly, there isn't much else to talk about here. This is a very small game and there's only 2 modes, which being arcade and multiplayer, which I can't really blame for basically being a direct port from the arcade machines. But at the same time, I can, because they did add new content when porting Tekken 2 and Tekken 3 to the PlayStation. While this game exceeds in aspects like bringing new mechanics to the fighting game genre like punishing moves, and it also has an amazing soundtrack that was way ahead of its time, in the end, it's hard to excuse the slow, clunky, and the delayed gameplay. Tekken 1 is a game that does not hold up today as a good fighting game. That is such a shame, because this game is a perfect example of how a game ages terribly. This game is simply not that fun to play anymore. Nevertheless though, Tekken on the PS1 makes the bad list and gets a 4 out of 10. On this show, we don't rate the games on how they were for the time. We rate them depending on if they hold up today or not. And believe me, people going into this game nowadays is a train wreck. But that doesn't mean we can't look back at it and see how it was back then. And back then it was revolutionary, but nowadays it doesn't hold up. But what does? Tekken 2 came out a year after the first one, and how does it improve it? Stick around till next week to find out. If you're hearing this, then you decided to watch this video to the end, and I'm extremely grateful for that. Thank you. If you enjoyed, don't forget to check out the entire GameTalk playlist, and don't forget to check out my channel and subscribe with those notifications turned on to see my future uploads. Also, a like on this video will help me out a lot too. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you before you know it. See you later.